friends, it's Rana, and it's that time of the year again, the end of March, where last year I made a 5-star prediction video. I predicted that specific 6 books I'm gonna give 5 stars, and it is now a year later where I'm here to update you if my predictions were right or not. So the concept of the 5-star prediction is to have a list of books that you predict that you're gonna love, you're gonna give 5 out of 5 stars, and they will become favorite books of yours. Many people make long lists, some make vlogs reading these 5-star predictions. I'm not a vlog girly, so I always make a 6 book predictions. I think this is my 4th time doing this. I'm not always the best at predicting the books because I myself not always sure if I know my taste. Like, I'm really good at knowing which books I'm gonna hate, but I'm really bad at knowing which books I'm gonna love. You feel me? My predictions are usually 2 books from one of my 3 top genres, 2 from fantasy, 2 from historical fiction, and 2 from non-fiction books. Let's start with the fantasy predictions because they were the hardest for me to finish. And the first prediction I made in the fantasy category is The Shadow of the Gods by John Gwynne. This is the most recent out of all of these I read because I was really hesitant to read it and I finished it like last week. The main reason why I predicted that I'm gonna love this book is because of the covers. The covers are absolutely beautiful, and because many people or many booktubers I trust their taste in books love John Gwynne's books, so I thought I'm gonna like it too. This was, I believe, my first experience with dark fantasy. This one is inspired by Norse mythology and warriors, fighters, and what we call them, Vikings, I think. The description of the characters evoke the image of Vikings in my head. I'm not gonna talk a lot about what this book's about. I'm gonna do that in my wrap-up video for the ones I still didn't talk about or review on my channel. One of them is this. So this book is a bit long, as per all fantasy books. I wasn't feeling like reading any fantasy books recently. I don't know what the reason behind that, but I wasn't feeling like reading any fantasy. This one was the last book on this prediction list and I needed to read it to make this video, so I forced myself to read it. I started reading it physically through reading the book itself, and the start of it was intriguing. I read a few chapters, then I said, why force myself to read it when I don't feel like reading fantasy? Why don't I listen to it? Especially because the names are hard for me to pronounce because of the alphabet used in it. So I listened to the audiobook. It was not the best audiobook I ever listened to, but it made it easier for me to finish this book. That doesn't mean that the book is bad. No, it was my problem. I wasn't feeling any fantasy, and it wasn't really helpful that I picked it in Ramadan to read. So yeah, one thing for sure, that this book has a scene in it, including a phobia of mine, and I still think about it. It disgusted the shit out of me. I don't know if it is a phobia or if I'm just disgusted by these creatures. I hate even saying their name, and it is worms. This book, other than that scene with the worms, this book mentions worms like every other sentence. It was ridiculous. Wanna describe something? Insert the word worm in it. I don't know why the author did that. Did he know that I hated worms with a burning passion? I don't know. This book I gave 4 out of 5 stars. It wasn't a 5 out of 5 stars. It is a very good book, but it was full of fighting scenes, but I wasn't feeling that much excited to read about fighting scenes, even though I love reading about fighting scenes, but there was too much of them in here and not much happening or progressing in the story or the plot. Love the cliffhanger of an ending. It will make me more willing to pick the second book. I don't know yet if I'm gonna finish the series. It is a trilogy and the 3rd book was recently published. I don't yet know if I'm gonna continue the series or not, but this one was 4 out of 5 stars. But it was a unique fantasy book. I never read anything like it before in my reading journey. I know a lot of books are similar to it, but it was my first. The second prediction in the fantasy genre is Guards by Terry Pratchett. This one was a whole different experience than that one. Again, because I'm not in the mood for any fantasy to read with my own eyes and put myself into the torture of reading new words about word building, magic systems, and whatnot. So I also listened to this on audiobook. I read some chapters. I listened to the rest. I don't know if because I'm not familiar with the author's writing style or the way people talked in this world, but I found it easier to listen to rather than reading. So this is my first time reading any Discworld book. Discworld is like this very long series in this world called Discworld, and this one is set like there's a series set for witches, some for dragons, and one is by death, things like that. And this one is the dragons, the guards one, and I enjoyed it. It was funny. A lot of time it made me giggle, but I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. It wasn't there yet to the 5-star position, but I enjoyed it. It was fun. More enjoyable than The Shadow of the Gods. At least it didn't have any worms in it. Again, I'm not sure if I'm gonna continue the series because it is very, very long, and if I'm gonna continue it, I am forced to buy it in these beautiful editions, and it is not easy to find, and they are expensive. So I don't know if I'm willing to continue reading the series. Maybe I'm gonna try to finish the Dragons, the Guards series on audiobook. I don't know yet. Don't take my word for it. The next book is more like literary with a bit of fantasy, with a bit of magical realism, and it is Lonely Castle in the Mirror by Mizuki Tsujimura. This book I was really expecting to love, but it didn't happen. Spoiler alert. It is a Japanese translated book. It talks about these groups of misfits, of students that don't fit in for some reason, and they don't go to school. Each for their different reason, but we can predict why, because we are following one of the characters. And this young girl, the main character, one day while she is alone at home, while everyone is at school or at work, her mirror in her room starts glowing, and she finds out that she can travel to this other world, other realm, where there's this huge castle with other kids and a little girl with a wolf mask that sets them some rules for a game. Fantastic premise, amazing idea. I would have preferred if it was executed a little bit better, but I'll give it that even though some parts were boring, nothing was happening, I just wanted to keep reading. Even though nothing was happening, I kept thinking about picking this book and reading it. And if you know me, and you know me that I'm an action person, I want for things to happen in my books, not just to follow random people doing random things. I give it 3.5 out of 5 stars. It was enjoyable, but a lot of work needs to be done to make it a better book, but I'll give it that. As I said, it is not easy to make the reader wants to keep reading the book even though nothing important is happening. It is really hard to pull as an author. I'll give her that. 3.5 out of 5 stars. Now for historical fiction books, we have As Long as the Lemon Tree Grows by Zulfa Qatul. No surprise to anyone, this book was 5 stars. I talked about it in a review video. I talked about it in the best books of 2024. It took the first place of my favorite books of 2024. A new all-time favorite. In short, this book is following this young lady called Salama. She is in Homs at the start of the Syrian revolution, the recent one that happened like 15 years ago. And it talks about her story, how she is coping with the siege of the city of Homs, and how she is trying to survive with her remaining family member, her sister-in-law, who is also pregnant, and how she is trying to get out of Syria while trying to collect some money and sell some gold and other things to help her sister-in-law get out of Syria before she gave birth. She works in a hospital trying to help people and survivors and injured people from all the crazy things that happening. At the same time, she meets this young boy called Kinan, and their story starts from there. You can say it is like love at the time of war, but it is tragic in many ways, trying to focus on the love as a side of things, giving hope for these people with their feelings, but a lot of tragic things is going all around them. I love it. I think it is a very important read, especially for people who don't know what is happening in Syria or what was happening in Syria and want to read something that will open their eyes to the situation. I give it 5 out of 5 stars as I said. So finally, a prediction that came true. The next book is another book that you are familiar with on this channel. It has a review video. It is on my top favorite books of 2024 is Almond by Son Byung-won. This book is a Korean translated book. It talks about a little kid who has this what we call condition called alexithymia, where he can't feel normal human feelings like anger, sadness, happiness, love, etc., etc. It is a very short book, very fast read, like very, very fast read. The chapters are like a page and a half, and basically it is the story of family, friendship, even you can say enemies to friendship type of situation. I give it 5 out of 5 stars. I love it a lot. I think it is my favorite Korean book I ever read. I believe it will make an amazing K-drama or mini-series if they casted the right people. I highly recommend this book to anyone and everyone, regardless of your reading taste, because you will find something in it that you will enjoy. And the last prediction, it was a fail. I'm sad about it. It is for nonfiction and it is Into the Magic Shop by James R. Doty. This book, it says on the cover that a neurosurgeon's quest to discover the mysteries of the brain and the secrets of the heart. And when you read this, you would think that it is about this neurosurgeon experience with patients, with his field of work, with surgery. But no, it is a bunch of positive thinking, meditation type of crap. It is like a self-help book. It is not a medical nonfiction book. It is way more like a self-help book. Or no, you know these books that claim to be like a self-help book, but everything it talks about is to positively think about things, to control your mind, and to meditate every once in a while, and to look at things from a different perspective. That's the entirety of what I read from this book. It has nothing to do with neurosurgery. And a little bit of him when he was a little kid learning magic. I DNF'd it. I don't have no rating for this book because I DNF'd it. And the main reason why is because it didn't deliver what people will expect from its deceiving title. So the summary of the wrap-up: 4 stars, 3.5, 5, and DNF. 2 correct 5-star predictions. I just went quickly to see how many or which one of my 5-star predictions was the most correct, and it was round 3. It had like 3 correct 5-star predictions and the rest were like 4 stars. So it was the best I did ever in a star prediction video. And this one ended up being my 5th round of 5-star predictions. This round I replaced the nonfiction category with the classics because I think nonfiction was the worst I ever predicted a 5-star in it. So I'm gonna remove it for this round and put classics in its place. I know it's not the best genre to pick instead of nonfiction because I don't always enjoy classics, but I picked 2 that I hope or I predict that they are gonna be new favorites of mine. I have the pile here and let's start with fantasy as we usually do. And the first book we have is The Blade Itself by Joe Abercrombie, and it is a high fantasy book, a dark fantasy book, grim dark, like, where was it? The Shadow of Gods. I think they are in the same category of grim dark, but people somehow say that this is even more gory than that one. I have the whole book set of this trilogy, but I'm gonna put only the first book on my prediction list, as not to put a lot of pressure on myself. Honestly speaking, I don't know nearly anything about these books. So let's read the back of it like we always do. Logan Ninefingers, what an interesting name, infamous barbarian, has finally run out of luck. Caught up in one feud too many, he is about to become a dead barbarian, leaving nothing behind but bad songs and dead friends. Jezal Dan Luthar, paragon of selfishness, has nothing more dangerous in mind than winning glory in the fencing circle. But war is brewing, and on the battlefields of the frozen north they fight by altogether bloodier rules. Inquisitor Glukta, cripple turned torturer, would like little more than seeing Jezal come home in a box. But then he hates everyone, cutting Trajan out of the heart of the Union one confession at a time, leaves little room for friendships, and his latest trail of corpses would lead straight to the rotten heart of government, if he can just stay alive long enough to follow it. I think I'm gonna be correct about this one, because that sounds very promising to me. That's for the first book. Now for the second book, another fantasy, we have The Adventures of Amina Al-Sirafi by Shannon Chakraborty. I had the first series of her, the Daivabat series. I believe 2 books of her were on previous 5-star predictions, and one of them was correct. The finale of the trilogy was correct prediction. This is her newer release. I heard that it is about a middle-aged female Muslim pirate, and I heard that and was like, say no more, I'm gonna buy it. Amina Al-Sirafi has survived backstabbing rogues, vengeful merchant princes, several husbands, and one actual demon to retire peacefully with her family to a life of pity and motherhood. But when she's offered a job no bandit could refuse, she jumps at the chance for one final adventure that will make her a legend. Yet the deeper Amina dives, the higher the stakes, for there is always risk in wanting to seize one last chance at glory, and the price might be your very soul. I usually prefer to read finished series, but I couldn't stop myself from starting this one, even though it is only the first book out. I follow the author on Instagram, and she always updates us with her writing journey, and she finished the second book and will be published soon. So why not? I'm really excited to read this book, and I know I'm gonna love it. I also have a feeling it's gonna be better than the David series. I don't know why, but I have that feeling. Now for historical fiction, we have a very popular book, also a first in a series, and it is My Brilliant Friend by Elena Ferranti. What I know about this book is it is Italian. It follows 2 friends, female friends, from when they were very young till old age. That's what I believe is the book is about. Let me read it for you. From one of Italy's most acclaimed authors comes this ravishing and generous-hearted novel about a friendship that lasts a lifetime. The story of Elena and Lila begins in the 1950s in a poor but vibrant neighborhood on the outskirts of Naples. Growing up on these tough streets, the 2 girls learn to rely on each other ahead of anyone or anything else, as their friendship, beautifully and meticulously rendered, becomes a not always perfect shelter from hardship. Ferranti has created a memorable portrait of 2 women, but My Brilliant Friend is also the story of a nation. So the main character, her name is Elena, the same as the author. Interesting. Can't wait to read this one. The next historical fiction book is an absolutely cover by called A Terrible Kindness by Jo Browning Rowe. I saw this in International Amman Book Fair, and I picked it because of the cover. The vibrant yellow, the little kid here, and at the back when he is a grown man. I loved it. Yes, the synopsis played a part, but the cover, it played the larger part of me picking this book up. I'm not usually a cover buyer, but There is always a first time. Tonight, 19-year-old William Lavery is dressed for success, his first black tie do. It is the Midlands chapter of the Institute of Embalmers Ladies' Night Dinner Dance, and William is taking Gloria in her sequined evening gown. He can barely believe his luck. But as the guests tip their drinks and smoke their post-dinner cigarettes, a telegram delivers the news of a tragedy, an event so terrible it will shake the nation. It is October 1966 and a landslide at a coal mine has buried a school. William decides he must act. It will be his first job, and although he's yet to know it, a choice that threatens his own happiness. His work that night will force him to think about the little boy he was and the losses he has worked so hard to bury. But compassion can have surprising consequences, because as William is about to discover, giving so much to others can sometimes help us heal ourselves. It sounds like a heartbreaking book, but it has great potentials to be a new favorite. Now for the classics, we have The Metamorphoses by Franz Kafka. This one is considered one of the most important and the best classics to ever read. Everyone talks about Kafka. I never read anything by Kafka. I only know about his rocky relationship with his abusive father, but I don't know anything else about him. And this book, I believe, is about a man that turns into a cockroach. When the young salesman Grigor Samsa wakes up one morning transformed into a monstrous insect, his shock and incomprehension are coupled with the panic of being late for work and having to reveal his appearance to family and colleagues. Although over the following weeks he gradually becomes used to his new existence confined within the bounds of the apartment, and his parents and sister adapt to living with a grotesque bug, Grigor notices that their attitudes towards him are changing and he feels increasingly alienated. I didn't start reading this book yet, but I relate to him being worried about being late to work more than turning into an insect. Interesting. I'm flipping through the book and it has these long ass paragraphs with no breaks between them, and the font is very small. Hopefully it will be worth it. And I love the cover. It is the least disgusting one I could find. Now, last but not least, the second book in the classics category, and it is my most recent acquired book. It is the Book of Disquiet by Fernando Bissu. I always say I'm gonna look up how to read these people's names and I always forget. I know absolutely nothing about this book other than it has a very crazy high rating for a classic. It is from a country I want to read from for my Read Around the World challenge. I believe it is Portugal, if I remember correctly. Let's read what it is about together. Sitting at his desk, Bernardo Soares imagines himself free forever of Rua do Jordaros, of his boss Vasquez, of Moreira, the bookkeeper, of all the other employees, the errand boy, the post boy, even the cat. But if he left them all tomorrow and discarded the suit of clothes he wears, what else would he do? Because he would have to do something, and he would have to wear another suit. Yeah, I got nothing. Don't ask me why I have this book on my 5-star prediction list when I know nothing about it. It's the feeling, it's the sixth sense that I feel towards this book. I don't know why, since the first time I heard about the title, and I had that feeling that it is an amazing book. Will I be correct about that? We'll find out in a year. So these are my beautiful new 5-star predictions. 2 fantasy, 2 historical fiction, and 2 classics. I believe the first one I'm gonna start between these is My Brilliant Friend. Then maybe I'm gonna read a classic because I'm tired of fantasy books. Like I read The Shadow of the Gods, then I immediately picked Rhythm of War. And I'm tired. It is good, the Rhythm of War book, but I'm tired of fantasy. I want something else. I'm really hopeful about this round. I think it will be the best out of all the rounds I did for 5-star predictions. Hopefully it won't take me a year because I'm doing my Zero to Art challenge at the same time. So I will finish reading these books in less than a year, hopefully. So that's it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. Please subscribe to see my future videos and I'll see you next time. Bye!